have taken over this channel, and as we continue to guide you through the lands of night, you might discover that even the Guardians must seek out those that need to be taken.
Hell's Mistress by StoryMan-Jack, a tale of Lucifer's wolf. The town was silent. It wasn't quiet or shut down or sleeping. It was silent, as if no one lived in any of the buildings but ghosts, and no one ever had. He almost smelled the witches as he rode past a sign that said, "Welcome to Salem, Texas." They were expecting him, and he knew it. Not that it mattered too much. He knew almost nothing about the bitches except they were minions and slaves to demons of hell.
"But aren't you?"
a voice in the back of his mind said. The cowboy had indeed signed his name in blood to a contract that gave him the power of hell to do battle with the same. A faction that was creating chaos enough to jumpstart the apocalypse before it was time.
"They don't control me,"
he growled. "Do they not?" The voice argued with him. He stopped the horse at the edge of town for a long time, sitting alone and listening to the dusty wind. Nothing. He jumped down, his spurs tinkling in the night air, and he let the reins drop to the ground, leaving the otherworldly horse to its own devices. The wolf couldn't hear them or feel them, but they were there. 5, at least. A light came on, a firelight in the window, a candelabra, perhaps, in the old saloon and hotel at the end of the main street.
"An invitation?"
he thought. He changed course for the old hotel on the end of the street. There were little reason for the town to be where it was. No railroads, no cattle trails, no migration paths ran anywhere near the little town. It was as if it was hidden, a place of hiding. The wolf walked at a normal pace, his eyes and ears open and concentrating. Though he saw little but the flickering candle in the saloon window, he heard nothing but the wind howling its lonely wail. He was keyed up and remembered something he'd heard somewhere in the recent past. "Witches are bitches." It was like a whisper on the wind, from a voice he almost knew. He stepped up from the dusty street, his leather duster flapping in the dry wind, his boots loud on the plank wood of the boulevard. Walking through the swinging doors as if he expected a saloon full of patrons as normal, he stopped, eyeing the beautiful woman who sat at the bar with the candelabra and 2 glasses and a full bottle. Her obviously sleek form hidden for the most part by a dark wool cloak. Her hair stark red and eyes green, at contrast to the black lipstick and nail color she wore. He could smell the scent of hell heavy upon the woman, as if she had bathed in a tub of brimstone and sulfur. She smiled, her white teeth gleaming in the gloom, and her pale, lightly freckled skin glowing softly. The wolf had no trouble, none at all, seeing in the dark, but unlike the witches he'd come across before, the woman's true form sat before him, as beautiful and lovely as if she were not corrupted at all. He saw no scars on her body as she turned, revealing the little clothing under the soft wool cloak. Mitchell imagined that the woman's scars were in places that no man could see. "Come sit," the woman said in a lilting Irish accent, as crude as a washerwoman. "So," he growled, lightening his grip on the wolf, the power that held it back, giving power to his words.
"We're going to be cordial?"
She waved a hand at him. "For now." She paused, smirked. "Let's see how it goes." She sounded sincere, though. He wouldn't trust this creature, and that was exactly what this was. Not a woman, not a human, not anymore. The wolf moved to a stool and sat, leaving a space between them, and he turned, studying the woman for a long moment, then produced a cigar from his leathers, dust-covered clothes, and lit it with his finger, a flame bursting forth from its tip. He puffed and puffed, ensuring it would not burn itself out too soon, his eyes never leaving the witch's.
So,
He asked.
you're the leader here? The one they call Mother?
She smiled, though it never touched her eyes, the glowing green-hued orbs laughing and dancing in malevolence. You could call me that. I'm the oldest of the sisters here. You might even call me your proverbial mother-in-law. She laughed, a peal of laughter that was heartbreaking in its beauty and in its white-hot rage. The wolf growled, showing his teeth, having pulled the leash a bit further from the man's control at the mention of Mitchell's wife, the fake wife, the witch who had banished his real son's soul into the void in order to bear a demon child. Oh, she leaned back, clutching her ample chest. My, she gasped in exaggeration. The big bad wolf bears its itty-bitty fangs. She again laughed.
Oh, you stupid tool.
Her face and voice grew suddenly serious.
I had nothing to do with that.
She laughed again, this time her laughter in the voice of a normal, tired woman. Pour, he growled, nodding at the bottle and the two glasses. She watched the man in black for a long time before shrugging and turning to pour the 2 double shots of the gold liquid in the bottle.
Trying to get me drunk, she chuckled. Big bad wolf, she teased in exaggeration. You tried to take advantage of a poor little girl.
He took his shot from her and raised it.
To hell.
He motioned with his glass and began drinking, causing the witch to raise an eyebrow and question before he finished it.
May it await your soon arrival,
he finished, his voice low, downing the rest of the liquid and letting the rough, hot feeling run down his throat into his chest and savoring it for the first time in a very long time.
Do you think so?
The woman asked, wiping the trickle of whiskey from her lip.
Is your fight with us, my fine hunter?
He sat and watched her face, looking for clues.
Us?
He asked.
I see only you.
She jumped down from her stool and pointed a finger at the man.
See,
he began,
that is exactly why I waited to have this little conversation with the little wolf whose reputation has grown so quickly. My coven has been subverted, she admitted, by a foul demon who's seduced my sisters away. Well, he said seriously, there's just a few more I'll have to hunt down and kill later. He smirked, his eyes flashing a glowing red, after I've dealt with you. His smile grew, smoke coming out of his nose as his cigar hung from his mouth, bouncing slightly as he spoke. I might even take a night or two to rest first. You think that's how it would go? She asked, her eyes alight. Don't you? He growled, the wolf ready to jerk control from the man, and Mitchell shook his head, barely holding the beast back. I'm about done with this banter, and ready to get on with the killing. You know, the bang-bang stuff. She laughed, truly amused. You fool, she said, tears rising in her eyes. You do not understand. Not at all. Her voice changed, as if a demon were speaking through it. He pulled his cigar from his teeth and growled. What? Woman? My sisters are on their way to kill us both. She laughed as if she would fall on the ground and roll around. Well, fuck, the wolf said before turning to watch himself in the mirror and puffed his cigar casually. That's it? The witch asked, giggles continuing from her lips though muffled and stifled. That's all you got? He leaned over, grabbed the bottle of whiskey, and turning it up into a long, deep draught. Slamming the now half-full bottle down on the bar, he said just before stuffing a cigar back into his mouth. What's your name? Call me Alice. Alice of the Green, she said. So tell me, Alice, he said, his 6-shooter in his hand, barrel only a hair from touching her smooth, pristine, and pale forehead. She hadn't even seen him move. But the calm with which the woman answered was otherworldly,
Because I am the only one who knows where your demon hides, and you cannot get out of this without my help." The wolf chuckled.
"I have power enough for a few slaves to demons."
She laughed.
"What do you know of us? Of what we can do? Of our power lent to us by lords as great as the Creator himself?"
Her voice lowering to a whisper as she continued.
"You, with your power bound, set upon a trail by a master, a hound, a puppy, your wife, my sister, stolen and lured away to the end that only hell knows, her life and burning soul the cost." "The same cost awaits you in the end, woman," he growled low.
"Not the same, no, worse, much worse. But I got what I wanted, and will pay that bill gladly, you see. It may never ever seem that the cost is worth it,
but what was done to me, my vengeance, unlike yours, was worth every burning moment that I will have to endure. Besides, who knows? I've been immortal so far. Death hasn't come yet, after all, love. And I've been around for near 500 years, by the reckoning of the foolish Christians. So, that's why they call you Mother. And you tell me that you weren't the mother your sister referred to when they confronted me on the road? Not the mother who sent the infiltrator into my heart?
She shook her head. No. My master's not behind this. My master would not do such a thing, and I'll wait to become his bride alone. I will carry his son, though it seems I must return to Europe first, and I must seduce a rival." The old clock struck 2 a.m. She sighed.
"Well,"
she told him, standing.
"it is the witching hour, and our time's up," she told him. "Either work with me and get your master's demon so you can travel another path, or die here with me."
He pulled his guns and stood.
"Nope."
He narrowed his eyes.
"You know, it's probably a trick you want to help. I've still got a bullet with your name on it."
She shrugged as if unconcerned, allowing him to continue.
"And as soon as this is over, as soon as I take this demon, I'm coming to find you, coming to kill you, coming to wipe your blood from this universe."
She smiled, genuine and true, a smile of warmth, and patted his arm. "Pop," she said, "better things than you have tried. But I invite you. Please, come." An unearthly screech sounded from outside in the street. Mitchell turned to look out the dark windows.
"Put those candles out,"
he ordered, unable to see through the reflections in the glass. The light went out, and Wolf took the lead. He neared the swinging doors, staying low, and got a good look out in the street, as good as he dared. Taking the situation, after a few minutes of study, he came back to the bar where Alice had ducked down out of sight. He checked his guns, though he knew damn well they were loaded.
"There's 4.
"Yes, only 4 left." She shook her head sadly. "All 13 of us survived Salem's hunts. We even covered our tracks by using that dark drug ergot to poison the town. A few whispers in the right ears during ergot poisoning. Oh, chaos ensued. The trials went on for weeks."
"You mean whispers or lies? All 4 are lined up at the end of the street down there like morons."
He paused.
"You don't pick bright ones to follow you, do you?"
She waved a hand as if his point didn't matter.
You go confront them, and I'll get behind them. See if your power will be enough."
The wolf snorted.
"Do what you want, witch. I'll take care of them, and then I'm coming for you. So, if I were you, I'd just leave while the women were distracted."
She nodded. "Well then, I believe our little parley is just about over. Just remember, puppy, that the powers of hell are fractious and divided. Chaos is chaos, after all.
Yeah, I'll be seeing you,
he said, and stood, then pulled his handguns, took a deep breath, and strode out to the center of the dusty street. Torches he had not noticed, lined either side of the street, burst into flames to light up the entire area. Mitchell looked back to see Alice wave and wink at him before fading back into the shadows of the saloon. Grunting, he turned his attention to the 4 women in the street. All were lovely and fair, but as he waited, the power in his eyes allowed him to see their true natures. Their bald, tortured bodies, red and raw, cuts and infected rips in their skin, putrid, running with pus down them. A brand was burned over the hearts of each of the women, the blackened silhouette of a goose.
Now that's just about the damnedest, stupidest thing I've ever seen, he growled. A demon in the aspect of a goose.
He shook his head and began firing his irons. Not one of the hellfire-infused bullets hit any of the 4 women, however. Unnaturally fast, they moved like insects, their limbs and bodies shifting and moving, knees and elbows bending in unnatural ways as they shifted and jumped, spun and moved. Their speed was supernatural. The wolf grinned.
This is gonna be fun.
He holstered his guns and waited for one to get close. Just waited, stood, puffing on a cigar. And even as the dark, emaciated, tortured form came close, fire alight in her hand, he pulled a knife and sank it deep into the top of her head. The knife struck so hard it burred itself all the way to the hilt. So it was stuck, and he had to release it, kicking the creature's form in its chest to get her bubbling and disintegrating body out of his way. The wolf screamed its hate and rage as a line of fire burned its back, and he howled, a deep, guttural howl. A line of glowing fire burning a line in his back, a malformed woman holding a short sword thin and light in her right hand, his blood dripping from its point. And even as he turned, another searing pain hit his side, causing him to fall to a knee.
All that power,
a wicked, screechy voice said as he squeezed his eyes shut, trying to deal with the pain.
And you're limited. Tied by the power of heaven. Your power is a hindrance, child. As good as a power of nothing. It's disabled, retarded, just like you.
He lost himself. Even if he were finally to die, he was good with what he had done. The balance of the scales of his life. He was a good man. He known that. And in the end, his war that started his vengeance had become more. So much more. He saw the children that he had saved. The normal good people just trying to live their lives who would no longer have them if he'd never been around. And creatures like these witches, they fed upon the normal people, the regular people, going about their business. They tortured and tore families apart, and the darkness looked to be the best of humanity was nothing more than food, and food they liked to play with. His acceptance, his final prayer to a God he'd thought he'd forsaken, filled him with joy and an acceptance that if his life was over, he had his Creator, even in the darkness of an abandoned town, founded upon hell's reach. That's when the wolf felt it. The chains heaven had wrapped his power in. They didn't fall away. They contracted. They melted. They entered the power of hell, had gifted him. And the silver power that bound him, limited him, retarded his power, changed that power, and enhanced it forever. His eyes snapped open and glowed. But this wasn't the low red glow of the power of hell, but the silver white life of a righteous warrior of God. He smiled, his cut duster and torn leathers mending themselves, even as the white nimbus surrounded him. I give myself to the Lord my God and his Son my Savior. His arm shot forth, faster than a human eye could follow, and grabbed one of the wretched creatures by the throat.
There is no power but that what comes from the Lord my God.
He snarled and snapped the beast's neck with a twist of his wrist. He stood before he could even think to pull his shooting irons. They were already in his hands, the glowing power flowing down his arm, changing the black metal with glowing red script etched into the barrel, into bright silver metal with glyphs of white light and ivory grips with the form of a wolf howling on either side. The projectile that came out of the barrel was like a lightning bolt from God as it struck first one witch, then leapt to the other, leaving him alone in the dusty street illuminated only by the glow of torches. He knelt again and began to pray in earnest.
I understand that I'm yours,
he whispered aloud to his God.
Send me a sign, a guide for my path. Well, now,
another voice said in front of him.
I know a house that needs to be cleaned up a bit.
Wolf looked up. He saw an old man with a long beard holding a staff.
Who the hell are you supposed to be? Merlin?
He asked the old man.
You might not be that far off, you see. But no, not really. Just another traveler. Call me Bach.
The old man chuckled and reached down to pull Mitchell up.
I mean, you did want a sign after all, and I think...
He paused, looking up in the night exaggeratedly.
It seems he heard you.
He paused and looked now standing cowboy in the eye.
We have a war to fight, son.
The wolf just growled.
Yes, we do, partner.
The old man turned before waving his staff and slicing a portal out of the very air.
Just where the hell does that lead?
The wolf asked, lighting a cigar.
Oh, just another reality,
the old man Bach said and stepped through. After a long moment, Mitchell, formerly Lucifer's wolf, followed.
And so a general has recruited his sword to fight those creatures in the night, in the dark. Until next time. Nox Mini, fear the night.